and the sinner. And without getting too personal to people, because some people put their hand up, my suggestion, my thought, think about this. If you put your hand up, have you got a mixed idea about sin and the sinner? Because if you do that for Satan, Lucifer, do you do that about your brother who's sitting next to you, or your sister, or your spouse? Do you imprint sin with the sinner? Because Christ always separates the two, doesn't he? He hates sin and he loves the sinner. But we join them together and we hate, we actually we hate the sinner and love the sin. Frank, don't we?
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got Solomon, the person who's going to rebuild the temple, and he's a symbol of who? The 144,000, the remnant. Someone said something? I heard someone shout something. You've got to repeat it because I didn't hear you the first time. Us. Us. Why do we add that clause at the end? If. Why do you say if? It should be an if. I mean, why aren't you faithful? You could say if I'm going to remain faithful, but you can't say if we're faithful, because you're faithful now, aren't you? Put your hands up if you're not faithful. No. You should, no one in this room should be unfaithful today, right now. This shouldn't be. You've had all of lunch to sort out your sin problem, haven't you? So I told you do that during lunch. Sort out the sin problem that's in your life. Vow, commit, because you all went up and you shook all of those people's hands. You vowed to stop fooling around with God, didn't you? Yeah? No more messing around on your phones, on YouTube, reading, watching, listening to things that you're not supposed to. I'm talking to the parents here, not the children. Because the parents are the criminals in this. They are, really. We are. We're the criminals, not the children. Okay, degrees. What is degrees? Oh, it's so many things, wasn't it? It was levels. It was steps. Elevation. Ascending. Yes. So many things. So many things about this ascension. So many things about this degree. And what was a summary? Who wants to venture to give us a good summary of all of those 6 words? Sister Emma did it this morning. Someone else? Who wants to put together what we all said? Sister Joan, you sound like a winning participant.
I was just yawning, not really.
I know. No, I thought you wanted to say it.
No,
You did.
I'm trying to remember what Sister Emma said.
I don't remember what she said.
Oh.
Make it original.
The 3 steps. I'm trying to remember.
Okay, we'll start with the first word, the song.
I'm sorry.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Right, Leslie, I'm going to pick on you.
Okay, so in the summary we can say that we've been talking about the experience of the people with whom God is entering into covenant at the end of the world, who are building up his body, the body of believers.
And how's he doing that? The degrees being that?
Yeah, he's doing that through steps, through attesting a message, the everlasting gospel.
That's it, I remember now.
Good.
The 3 feasts.
Yes.
The 3 steps. Solomon is rebuilding. Oh, we're rebuilding the wall, starting from the foundations. And when you draw a reform line, it is actually the foundation of a temple. It's coming back to me, but slowly.
Good, you've got most of the point. And this foundation is what? Christ, the Rock of Ages, and it's these charts.
Yeah.
It's the messages and the truths that are on these charts. That's the foundation. And the last book that we tackled that we really need to be firm in our minds about is Isaiah 28. Which verse?
Oh, yes.
9 to 11. 9 to 11.
Oh,
Oh, we have different answers?
10 and 13.
10 and 14.
10 and
10 and 14?
10 and 13.
Yeah, you can go.
Yeah, verse 10, verse 13.
Okay, so let's turn there.
13 or 14.
Let's turn
10
there.
and
Because
14.
I want us all to be happy that we can go back into Isaiah 28. And you might not be able to remember it, but when you go into the verses, mark your Bible if you're into marking. If you're into marking your Bibles, mark them. Line upon line is verse 10 and verse 13. Two people read those two verses, please.
Verse 10 says, for precept must be upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, dualism and dualism.
And verse 13.
But the word of the Lord was unto them, precept upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, tabernacle upon tabernacle, that they may go and fall backward, and be broken snares and snares.
We'll go through the verses and I want to make a comment about verse 13. Then if you remember, we read verse 15, and then it was verse 16, foundation. It was verses 16 and verse 17. 16 talks about the foundation, a tried stone, a precious cornerstone, a sure foundation. He that believeth shall not make haste. And then it says 17, judgment also will I lay to the line, righteous in the plummet, and the house shall sweep away the refuge of life, and the water shall overflow the hiding place. And what did we say the hail and the waters that overflow are?
The sprinkling of the Holy Spirit.
The Holy Spirit?
No.
Sister Sigrid?
The latter
Latter
rain.
rain? Sister
Oh,
Tina?
the Syrian power, yeah.
Who you pointing at?
Sorry.
Sorry, just said they're Syrian.
I don't know who you're pointing at.
They're Syrian.
Yeah.
They're not answering.
And the hail shall sweep away. Yeah.
The hail and the water.
They're papacy, but in that context, they're Syrian power.
A heavy.
We had a couple of answers, but the conclusion we came to was this was a message of judgment.
Yeah.
This hail is going to sweep away the lie. And what is the lie? Don't worry, when the overflowing scourge shall pass through, it's all going to be okay. And it's not. And remember it says lines of judgment and plummets of righteousness. And it really is those two symbols, this tape measure and the plummet, which are the symbols that you know that this is dealing with the building of a temple, and it's talking about judgment and righteousness, and you've got vertical lines and you've got foundation. So when you piece all that together, you're building up a temple, and Solomon's doing that work. So we spoke about Elijah earlier. Does that mean Solomon is Elijah? It's all symbolic. Well, was John the Baptist Elijah?
Yes. He was a form of Elijah.
Yeah, it's all symbolic, obviously. We don't believe in the literal resurrection of those little dead men, do we? So, Solomon, are we comfortable to say Solomon is Elijah? Yeah? He has to be. He has to be. Yeah. So, let's go back to Psalm 127. And let's pick up the first part of the verse. Remember we spoke about repeat and enlargement. So we want to see if we can do a repeat and enlarge on the first verse. It reads, except the Lord build the house, they labour in vain that build it. Except the Lord keep the city, the watchman waited in vain. So the question is, how do we understand what all of those different things mean? So let's go to the first part of the verse. It says, except the Lord. We all said we've got the King James, I remember we were saying that. And can you see, halfway through the verse, there's a colon in the verse. that.
Yes. After it.
Yes. So that colon is telling you there's a break in the thought. It's a new thought that comes after it. So it says, except the Lord build the house, they labour oh sorry, it didn't say that, did it? It says, yeah, they labour that build it in vain. Yeah, I think I've changed the sequence right. It says, except the Lord build the house, they labour in vain that build it. I've just changed the sequence of that. Except the Lord build the house, they labour in vain that build it. I'll swap these two round. Okay? You okay with that? And the second part of the verse says, except the Lord. And this is the clue that we have. Because it says, except the Lord. So, if we do line upon line, here's one line, or one phrase, and there's an identical one. And these two are going to lock in this thought. So they're the clue that tell you that everything that comes afterwards is the same. So let's make it the same. Except the Lord keep the city, next one, the watchman. Good. Before we take the next one, can you see, when you see how to do it, how easy it is?
Yes.
Yeah? And we haven't even started working out what everything means. All we've done is just place it.
Yeah.
But you can already see, as you're doing it, actually, I think I might be able to glean some truth out of this. Okay, so we've got keep the city, the watchman, then what? Waken. I did, because it keeps this one tidy. I would have had to change one of them. When you go to the Hebrew, we'll do the Hebrew in a minute. This one says in vain, yes?
Yes.
In vain. The reason why I did it this way is because you can see the beginning and the end are identical.
Yeah.
It just locks them in, and so you know everything in here has to be correct. This is, I think, righteousness by faith. Righteousness is what? Being right. And I'm saying this is right by faith. Because I believe this rule is a valid rule. It's a real rule that works. And I'm going to believe that everything here is correct, even if I don't understand it, even if I don't like the conclusions that it comes to, but I'm going to believe it's right because I have faith in this technique, in this rule. So I think this is the form of righteousness by faith. Now, this is the King James Bible. There are many Bible translations. And remember I spoke earlier about a lexicon. Does anybody know what a lexicon is, by the way? Okay, so some people didn't know. And I used the word lexicon deliberately so that someone would ask, but nobody asked me, or I didn't hear you. A lexicon. And a lexicon is a fancy word for a dictionary. But it's a special kind of a dictionary. It's not just, what does keep mean? It's not going to give keep and explain it in the English what it means. A lexicon is a dictionary that translates from one language to another. That's the context in which we use it. So it's a dictionary from one language to another. And perhaps the most famous lexicon, I'm sure you've all heard of it, is Strong's.
Oh yeah.
Strong's was named after a man called Mr. Strong, literally. And he, by the way, he made a Bible. I don't know if you know that. He had a Bible translation as well, Strong's Bible version. And he did this one. He's not the only person. There are other people. Another famous one that you may have heard of is Youngs. Youngs and Strongs, they're both similar. And another one that I quite like to use is called Brown Driver Briggs. This was 3 men. The names are Brown Driver Briggs, BDB. These are all easily available lexicons or dictionaries. And without using these, you can't decipher what's going on. Because if I ask you, what does Solomon mean? You wouldn't know what the word Solomon means, because it's a Hebrew word. But if you go into here, into these dictionaries, they tell you what they mean. Crude stuff, I don't think it does. The original crude. Oh, great. I wonder if that's the expanded one, because the original Prudence only has the Bible verses. There's this book here, I don't know if everybody's seen it. It's a really, really good book to get hold of. And it doesn't have every single word in it, but it has people's names. It has everybody's name in it that you can think of in the Bible, and it tells you what their name means. So this is a really useful book. So you can either use one of these dictionaries, or you can use a book like this. And this isn't the only book, there are other books. There's Hitchcock's, there's this person, there's a couple of other men who have done work, and they just tell you what these words mean in the Hebrew or the Greek.
What's the difference between that and Crudence?
What's
the difference between those and the Crudence Concordance?
Crudence only gives you the Bible verse. It doesn't tell you what the original language coding is.
Oh, okay.
It just says Strong's is found in these verses. It won't tell you what the word itself means, the definition of it. No, Thales is another one. Thales is the Greek one. Yeah. I think it's both, like Strong's is. I think it's both. So this is what a lexicon is. It's a dictionary. You need to have these dictionaries. You need to have a dictionary before you can really begin to understand how to interrogate the Bible in this way. Oh, yes. You mean like English to English? So the best dictionary that you should be using is Webster's Dictionary. It's one that was written in the 19th century, I think.
1828.
Yeah, the 19th century, 1828, and it's a really good dictionary because it uses words which have today changed their usage, and in many of the, especially spirit of prophecy terms, it gives an accurate understanding of what that means. For instance, she says working with children is the nicest work, or the mind of children. And if I said to you it's the nicest work, what do you think that would mean? It's a really pleasant, good job. But it means something totally different. The nicest work means it's actually really difficult, hard work, working with the minds of children. It's a labour of love, if you like. So it has a slightly different meaning. So that's a good dictionary to use. So that's what a lexicon is. And Bible translations, a nice Bible translation, if you can get hold of it, is Young's literal translation, written by the same man, Young's. And what he did is, he wrote his Bible version, and it's very literal, to the degree that when he puts it into the English, he's going to put it in virtually the same order that it was in the Hebrew. But King James doesn't do that. So I'm telling you now, this first bit here, it says, except the Lord build the house, they labour in vain, is not really the order that it happens in. It's slightly different in the original, but it doesn't read so well. I'm reading in the Young Literal Translation. It says, if Jehovah does not build the house, okay, if Jehovah does not build the house, in vain have its builders laboured at it. Can you see the in vain is tucked in the middle there? That's in the original Hebrew. And then the second part of the verse says, if Jehovah does not watch the city, in vain hath a watchman wait. So in the original Hebrew, it's exactly in the same sequence. But in the English, when I leave King James, I swap this one round. But in the original, they're exactly the same sequence. But that shouldn't trouble us. So, we've looked at this verse without even understanding what all the Hebrew or whatever means. What's this teaching us? Build and keep are the same.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if that changes your whole perspective of what building the house is. Because you've got building the house and you've got keeping the city. Who's building the house? God is, it says here, God's building the house. And building the house means what? What does it mean if you build the house? According to the verse.
You're keeping it.
It means to keep the city.
Can I go back a bit?
Yeah?
It says except the Lord built the house. So it implies there's two buildings of the house.
How do you see that?
Yeah.
Except.
What does accept mean, by the way? Do you know what accept means?
Exception.
Yes, it means unless or if not. In the original, it means if not. If the Lord doesn't build the house, if He doesn't build the house,
The labourers in vain.
those who are labouring to build the house are doing what? It's a wasted venture. So, to understand what that would that mean that there's two buildings going on, the Lord building one and the men building one? Or does it mean, if you're building a house without God's approval, without His say-so, without His blessing, that's a good way of saying it, it's a wasted venture. And you know it means that because of this second one. Because if you've got watchmen who are awake and they're doing their job, what's going to happen to the city if this isn't fulfilled here? No, if they're doing the job, it says the watchmen are awake, so they can't help the city. You can have as many watchmen doing everything that they're supposed to do, but if the Lord isn't in the protection of the city, it's not going to do. All they're going to say is what? The enemy's coming.
Help yourself.
And what difference does it make? You've just got an extra 10 minutes to know that you're going to die or be destroyed. Instead of being destroyed in your sleep, you're going to be destroyed when you're awake. So, I found this interesting. The house is the city. What is the city? What city is this? Not London. Not London. Who lives in London?
David City.
Jerusalem. Yeah, this has to be Jerusalem, isn't it? Yes, we would normally do that. We normally separate them, don't we? But when you see this, you see that the Lord is trying to redouble His point that the house has to be the house of Israel. This is the house of Israel. This is Jerusalem. It's the same thing. And here it says build, but here it's saying keep, protect. If the Lord isn't behind or isn't blessing the building project, it's going to all be wasted. So who's actually doing the building?
God.
Who's actually doing the watching?
God.
Who's doing the watching?
We are.
God.
The watchman. The watchman.
The watchman. So who's doing the building? The labourers are. So yeah, God isn't actually building anything. So what does this phrase mean? Except the Lord build the house. What does that mean then? Sorry? Okay, yeah. So it means if it's building. But what does this little bit? What does this phrase mean?
It means Everything to go down his instruction, according to his plan.
According to his plan, without his instruction. If you're doing anything without the Lord's plan, or in a way that he says you're not allowed to do it, it's a wasted venture. And that should be significant to us. If you start doing any kind of planning or scheming, and the Lord isn't in it, it's a waste of time. And it gets even more serious when you go into the other verses. Except the Lord protects the city, the watchmen, they can stay awake, and it's all in vanity. And you know, when we read Bible passages like Jeremiah 23, what does Jeremiah 23 teach?
Woe to the pastor.
Woe to the
Pastor.
Why?
Because they're doing it in vain.
Can they scatter the sheep?
They're the watchmen.
What have they done?
Scatter the sheep.
They scatter the flock. Now, are these all watchmen, dumb dogs that cannot bark?
No.
Yes or no?
Yeah.
Okay, but if we put line upon line together, what's this teaching? Were they barking or were they not barking?
They are barking, but
Not the wrong thing.
They're barking in vain. That's what it means, that dumb dogs that don't bark. It's not that they're not barking. It's not that they don't even see the trouble. What it is, that they're barking in vain. So, you know, often we're really critical about the structure of our church, conference structure, because we say they don't do anything. They don't know anything. But they know exactly what's happening, and they're warning the people. They're barking, but they're barking, I'm suggesting, is in vain. And why is it in vain? Because their barking is in a way that the Lord has not given a blueprint for. It's not in the design and construction of this barking, or in this phrase, it's the keeping. Can you see when you put these two thoughts together, how you can begin to bring other thoughts, and it changes the way you view things? Because normally we think there's watchmen who are watching and there's watchmen who are sleeping. But the people who are sleeping aren't really asleep in real life. In real life, their waking is as bad as being asleep. Or their barking is so wrong, they might not as well have said it, they might as well have just been a dumb dog, because the effect is the same. What's the point of having a dog that barks? To warn. Oh, okay, so I've been warned that I'm going to die in 2 minutes. Is that the purpose of the dog?
no.
So that you know that you're about to die?
It's to warn and protect.
It's to warn and protect. So I'm not trying to build too much about the dog. I'm not trying to say it's a guard dog. But the purpose of it, the purpose of the warning is to save your life. So there has to be a possibility that when the dog barks, when the watchmen watch, that the purpose of their watching is not to tell you, by the way, do you know you're going to die in 5 minutes? And you would have said, well, thanks for that. I'd rather die in my sleep. You know, what's the point of knowing that you're about to die if it's a certainty? That's not the purpose of a watchman, is it? The purpose of him watching is so that you can escape the calamity. That's what all those phrases, when he talks about the bad dogs and the people who aren't doing anything, they're all asleep, they don't know what's happening, isn't because they're not awake, it's because everything that they're doing is in the wrong way. It serves no purpose. And you can pick all of that up just from verse 1 of Psalm 127. You put these two things together.
So the purpose of the building is not to build your building, it's to build you a good building.
Well said. It's to build a proper building, the right one. We can get a bit sensitive. Is the church, our church, building a temple?
Yes.
Yes. John chapter 2, verse 20. Everybody familiar with that verse? Let's read the verse. John chapter 2, verse 20. Yes. Yes. John? Yes, it's to prepare you, not just prepare you to die, prepare you to live, to escape, because there's no point otherwise. Who was it? If you had some kind of terminal illness, would you rather know or not know? If it was terminal,
Not know.
you'd rather not know because it affects your life. It makes your life miserable.
Changes your mind.
Yeah. If it was terminal, I mean it's hard because obviously we don't know that. John chapter 2 verse 20. Then said the Jews, 46 years was the temple in building, and will thou rear it up in 3 days? Famous Bible verse. This is a trick question. How long does it take to build that temple?
46 years.
Okay, so that was the trick. And it doesn't take 46 years. Because they're still building the temple the next day, in the next year, and the next year, and the next decade, and the next 2 decades, and 3 decades. In fact, they never finished building that temple until the Romans came and destroyed it. But what they're saying is this. In 19 BC, approximately 19 BC, we started building the temple. And we're going through history, and today, here, it has been 46 years and counting since we started building. And they're going to carry on building after it, it's not finished. But the point they're making is, are they building the temple?
Yeah.
So they're building the temple, a nice building project, and in fact it goes right through Christ's ministry, right through the ministry of the disciples, that last 7 weeks. It goes right through that, right up to AD 70. So there's a building project that's going on. But it's in vain. Whose building is it that they're building? Their own.
Solomon's, yeah.
I thought it was God's. Your house is left unto you desolate. But doesn't Jesus say, the zeal of thy house hath eaten me up? So yes, it's supposed to be God's house, his design, but whose house is it really? It's their house. He says, your house. After this event here, he says it's your house now, not mine. I wash my hands of it. It's their house. So it's all about this building. So they're building this project, and it's in vanity. They're all these watchmen doing all their things. Please go ahead. Yeah.
So we look at this at the church in general, but there are present truth ministries that are saying they fall into the same. I'll put words in your mouth, but
do you know?
I want to go. I do need.
Before Christ comes on the scene,
There are many before him.
the scribes and the Pharisees are mortal enemies. And after a while, they get it. They realise that Christ has come to destroy both of them. Because he says to the Sadducees, you've just got bad theology. And he says to the Pharisees, what does he say to the Pharisees? What would he say to them?
These ought to touch on and not their heels on them.
Amen. Well said. So they both join in this league. They both join in the league together. By the way, do you know how many people, actually it doesn't matter how many people, but everybody knows the Sanhedrin, yes?
Yeah.
We could call it General Conference Committee, but it goes right up there. It was formed of the Sadducees and the Pharisees. But you know who was the boss of that?
Sadducees.
The Sadducees. But they weren't allowed to be the boss because the people didn't like them. They were too upper class. So they let the Pharisees be the leading people, but with one condition, that they can't push their agenda. They can't push their agenda. So even at the very highest levels, there's this alliance between them. But really when Christ comes on the scene, in the Bible verses that show this, they come together for the sake of the common enemy. So I've given you your introduction. Go ahead.
I'm not saying it's more than that, it's just a question.
Yeah, the question.
Yeah, they work really, where the present truth ministry is into that. other present truth ministries.
So Levites.
It could be defined as being present truth.
I find it really interesting. You know, when people talk about present truth, I don't think, this is why you need dictionaries. The reason you need a dictionary is because it says, I need the truth bit out, it says present. And I'm not sure what people think what present means. Because, does everybody know what that means? Equal. Does everybody know what that means? Not equal. Okay, that's just like high school maths. It means not equal to the past.
Yes, okay.
Yep?
Yeah.
Okay, now, in the year,
Stop there.
Well, that's it, yeah.
No, go carry on.
in the year 1863,
Yeah.
okay, is the Sunday law present truth? No, it's not.
No.
Is health
Yes.
present truth?
Yes.
And health is to meal plan, everything. No, before that it wasn't. You know, before that, there are people in the church saying, you need to stop eating pork. And Ellen White says, you need to sit down and be quiet. You're not allowed to tell people that they can or cannot eat pork because the Lord didn't tell you that. So it's not a test. You can eat pork all you want. I don't mean literally 1863, but in the years preceding that. There is no health test. It's not present truth then. Now it becomes present truth. So I want to tell you that, I can't remember the year, but dress reform, that was present truth sometime in Ellen White's history. And at the same time, when that happened, the Sunday law wasn't present truth. So you know the definition of present is that it wasn't in the past. And if it was in the past, it's not present. So I want to suggest to you that health and dress are not present truth messages. They're past truth messages.
It's still present.
No, I don't think they're present. They're in the past. And Ellen White and you can define that extremely accurately because Ellen White tells you what present truth is. She says, there are many precious truths in the Bible, but it's present truth that the flock needs out. And she lists out she lists out three things what the present truth is. And it's not the reform message. And what I want to explain...
What are the three things of Parminder?
I can't hear?
What are the three things?
Wait.
It's a sanctuary. I'll find it. I didn't put it down there. No, it's the sanctuary, the 2300 days, and the commandments of God.
Okay.
So once the thing is, once it's said at the time, it's running through the ages after that. So isn't it still present? That's my conception.
Oh, let me explain this to you. Yeah, let's explain the point that I want to make by this. These are all past truths. Every single reform message that we have, I'll list three of them: diet, country living, and dress. They're the three that most people target. Are not present truth messages. They're past truth messages. And if you're in the past, that's not an inference that you're no longer required to keep them. But it's not the message that should be presented in the present. The present truth message, by definition, not mine, the Spirit prophecy, is by definition a new truth. A truth that God's people haven't dealt with in the past. Otherwise it would be a past message, not present truth message. So all of these ministries that call themselves present truthers aren't really true to the name, because every single one of them has got a message about the past. Now, I'm not saying you don't dip into the past as a type to understand the present, but there are specific present truth messages today that we need to deal with, which are going to help God's people to pass the test when the overflowing scourge comes. And it's the everlasting gospel. It's the first, second, third age messages. That's what the present truth is, but in a specific context.
Sorry, Tina's been a dog with a bone again. I'm still really confused because, for example, 9/11, most of us were oblivious to what was happening around us. So that's when the first angel's message came along, and it was present truth at that time. Now, well after that, that's when I accepted that truth. So, you said your words were, those messages shouldn't be presented, and if I'm wrong, correct me, but that's what I'm understanding. That
Which one?
So you spoke about, your examples were dress reform, country living, and diet. And you're saying that those messages aren't the message to be presented now in the present. It should be the messages, that the new truths that are coming out. So I'm a bit confused. I need to get straight what it is that you're actually saying.
I didn't bring in 9/11. You did.
No, okay. So forget 9/11. Repeat what you said again, so that I don't. If I'm understanding you.
I picked it up on the point that Brother Trevor said, what about these present truth ministries? And I'm saying they're not true to their name, because the messages that they're preaching are messages that were dealt with in the past. They should be called past truth ministries.
I get that.
Just because something isn't a past truth message doesn't mean that we don't have to live that past truth. That's not the point I'm making.
But my point is that it's still present and it's still relevant.
Sabbath, 10 Commandments, they're past truth, but we've got this thing.
Yeah.
I understand that.
No, I was just saying that those past truths have already been set up.
Yes. What I'm saying is, I'm not saying no one can ever talk about them, but if we're supposed to be presenting a message to God's people to say, get ready, because the end of the world is here, we should be, this is a new message. This is not a past message. So a present truth would be something connected with the present. And diet reform is not a present truth message. It's the message that's been in the church for generations. Everybody should have been dealing with that. None of us should be living in the city. So to say that country living is some present truth message isn't the present truth message that we're supposed to be bringing to God's people. The present truth message that we're supposed to be bringing to God's people, which is brand new, is that the Sunday law that everybody's been speaking about, dreaming about, talking about, is actually here.
The new president is present truth.
That would be an example.
Yeah.
The state and condition of the civil war that's looming in the United States and other countries is the present truth message. All connected with the second advent.
But,
My brother Ryan.
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying. I remember Remain always was like an example of Noah. You know, Noah's message was I'm just using that as a typical out of the sea. His message was, you need to get on the ark. That was the message that the people needed there and then. So it wasn't something, that Adam established. It was the ark was at that point. The ark was salvation. Even though country living and dying and all these other things were important, getting on board the ark was salvation.
But I'm not going to build a physical boat right now. But I'm not going to build a physical boat right now.
Yeah.
That's past truth.
I'm not saying the ark is
It's whatever the present truth is.
One more point, picking up on that before you say the point, is the purpose of a dress message, the purpose of a health message, and the purpose of a country living message is not a hammer that you go and hitting people with. The purpose of those messages is instructional. But
advisory.
Instruction, because people want to know something. But when we start talking about the 45th president, or we start talking about 9/11 or other truth, that is a hammer that you go hitting people with to wake them out of their death slumber.
Which is correct, though.
Sorry?
Which is correct, though, isn't it?
Yes. That's what I'm saying. The definition of present truth is something that makes dead people alive. And hitting people with a reform message will not do that.
I see what you're saying.
So what I'm saying is not that you cannot give a reform AY or reform message, but the purpose of it is to instruct people who want to hear. It's not to instruct dead people. It's to instruct living people. Because if it's dead people, what you're doing them, you're kicking them and saying, wake up and eat properly. And it doesn't work. Today.
Only if they're dying of cancer.
Exactly.
No, if they were dying of cancer, they'd want to know.
And they want to know. So
That's right.
That's why we're instructional.
Yeah.
That's what we're supposed to instruct people on how to live and eat.
Yeah.
But it's people who want to know.
Yeah.
Not to say, by the way, you can be saved by doing this, which is the definition of a present truth ministry. They're going to be, they see it as their truth, whatever it is a salvational message. I'm saying it's not a present truth salvational message. There's only one present truth. There's only one way. And you go to any generation and it is that. That's why when you go to the story of Christ, you don't see any stories there about eating and drinking. It's about the Messiah, the story of Noah. It's a singular message all the time because the Lord is going to use that singular message to drive home a point. That everything else isn't going to help you. You can do whatever you want. Yes, our present truth is that the Sunday law is here. Another way to express it is... No, I won't, because I'm eating to people's time.
No, express it.
Oh, no, she wanted to... I'll pick it up.
Sorry, Sister Cedric.
Old truth is a new life and old truth. So you have to go back into the dead scenario, be back into life now. It's like the health message. You can't have people coming into this message without there being some kind of reformation for them on the health message.
Let me stop you there. I totally disagree with that. You're supposed to bring people into this message who are living, breathing messes. The whole reform life is a mess. And you bring them into this message and you get a hammer and you slap them one and say, you're going to die if you don't get ready because there's a Sunday law happening. And when you do that, they'll ask you, what about my food?
What do I need to do?
And then you can say, by the way, you might want to change your diet. It might help you. But it's putting the cart before the horse.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, yeah.
It's this truth, the present truth.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
The present truth is what is the salvational message. Period.
Yeah.
That's why we teach, that's why the Bible explains really clearly that the everlasting gospel is a prophetic, not a moral test. Mr. Evans.
In the language of the line that we're doing, it's only as the Lord builds the house that you can do any of those topics. So if you're on this message, present truth, you're doing the lines, you're looking at the importance of the lines, then you can talk about health reform and dress reform in that context. Then you're a true believer building in the Lord. You're a true watchman then, but you're a watchman watching in vain if you're talking about a health message which is separated from this message, present truth. So it's a false watchman who's talking about dress or health or any of those things severed from this message which is the present truth. Prophetic lines.
It's perfect to bring it back to this because it's except the Lord build the house. So you've got to give the trumpet a certain sound. Otherwise, like I said, dealing with those things before, you've got to give the trumpet a certain sound. You've got to sound a certain way.
So in a certain sound, this would be the blueprint of this house. Because if you're not building according to the blueprint, the wasted bench is not going to work out.
You can have all the things there. You can have all the bricks there, but if you don't use it correctly, in the right order, you don't get a straight house.
And that's a great deception. That's a great deception because you think you're a health reformer, you're a dress reformer, you're doing all these things that God says, but you've severed it from the true foundation. So it has no power to make you righteous. So it's a deception because you think you're righteous. And that's
But when the storm comes,
it's the on sound.
What have you built again? What have you built?
Brother Romain.
We have Bible study in the past, long back in the past, where this girl, she's from Catholic Church. I was studying all the trumpets and so forth, so forth. She came with her ear, diode, earring, everything. And I never tell her about her earring and her ear. But the message, she changed her earring and she wear good clothes. We never mentioned nothing about health or diet or whatever. It's a message who did it. Now, back on Shirak's testimony in Zambia where he says that when they were having this meeting, this lady came with earring and miniskirt, but before the meeting finished, she gets somebody close to cover her leg and take out of her earring without anyone mention, anything to her about that aspect. So it is a message that causes these transformations.
And the danger with us as Adventists is we've trusted in the house that we built. So we built this house, we're dress reformers, we're health reformers, we're doing all those things. So conservative Adventists are the hardest to reach with this because
Yes.
they think they have the house
Because
already
they
built
think they've done it.
and they don't need this.
Oh, I was just going to say the cause leads to the effect doesn't do the cause.
Explain that.
So, for example, the everlasting gospel makes you do all those things, but all those things will not make you go to the everlasting gospel. So, it's cause and effect. So, by studying the everlasting gospel, that's how those will become active.
It won't be forced. And that's what I mean about present truth ministries. They subtly force, because the way it's expressed, a reform message is the way that you will be saved. And it just doesn't work.
I think it's set on course with that.
No, it hasn't.
Can I mention?
Someone said something?
Elder Parminder, you know,
Yes.
with regards to present truth, and we understand Daniel 11, 1 to 45, and you know how we understood that, you know, this, the president-elect was going to be Trump. I'm just thinking, because it's also history repeated, because you know, many of us not warned, but we informed our nominal brethren. And it's almost as if it's, because it's coming from us, they're kind of skeptical and saying, yeah, right. But I'm sure if maybe one of their ministers came out with that, they would have believed them more. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yes.
And that's what I found, is that we're unbelievable. Because it's coming from that offshoot group who's not studying with us. Do you know what I'm saying? I don't know if anybody else sees it that way. Yeah, exactly. So
And that's part of the test.
yeah.
Let me read you something about present truth. This is taken from Testimonies of the Church, page 693. 2T 693, paragraph 1. It says, special truths have been adapted to the conditions of the generations as they have existed. The present truth, which is the test of the people of this generation, was not a test to the people of generations far back. We know that. Therefore, it's not the present truth that's going to test God's people today. This is, you have to be able to see this definition of what present truth is. Without it, you end up not having any visibility between one present truth ministry and another. You have no way of deciphering one between another. If the light which now shines upon us in regard to the Sabbath or the fourth commandment had been given to the generations in the past, God would have held them accountable for that lie. She then says this. Oh, I like this one. This is a nice one. Let me give you the date for this, and you'll see why this is important. Review and Herald, June 29, in the year 1886. Why is 1886 important?
Because 2 years before 1888.
2 years before 1888. And there's one more, if I can find this one. I always struggle to find this quickly now. find it. If I get a chance, I'll find it afterwards. You're all familiar with the statement where Ellen White says, talking about William Miller's rules. Yeah? And she recommends that you read those rules. It's hard to do it because I can't prove it. Do you know what year that's written?
1888.
It's written in the year 1884. And why is that significant? It's 2 years before. So what you've got is 4 years. And we know 4 is a prophetic symbol. So you've got this 4-year gap. This is 1888. And this is when Revelation 18, verse 1 is fulfilled. Everybody know that? Revelation 18, verse 1. And this is 86, and this is 84. And in 84, Ellen White is telling God's people that they need to study Miller's rules. So that's the backdrop. And the reason she's saying that is because there are people in the church who aren't doing that. I don't know if you know this, but in 1884, the warfare between the prophet and the leadership was now in the open, that opened them in public. There was open warfare between the leadership and Ellen White because they didn't like what she was doing. And what was she doing all the time? Rebuking them, writing. Oh, they wouldn't mind if they were personal testimonies, but she'd go ahead and publish them. So everybody knows how bad everybody is. Yeah, talk about not covering your sin. So there's open struggle between them, and they're going to start changing the way they interact with her writing and the Bible. And so she says, warning God's people that the way you do it is through Miller's rules. You have to stick to Miller's rules to make sure that you're going to remain on the foundation. And she's doing this 4 years before Revelation 18 verse 1 hits the scene. And then she writes this in 1886. And this one is a really nice statement. She says this: the scriptures are constantly opening to God's people. What does that mean?
New light. New light.
Presbytery's coming out, light is unfolding. It's not static. The scriptures are constantly opening to God's people. By the way, if they're constantly opening to God's people, does that mean there's new words? No, the words are the same words.
New light.
So,
New understanding.
new understanding. Yeah. And how do you get the new understanding?
By reading the words.
William Miller's rules. New symbols. And how do you know where you get all this from? This is the Holy Spirit. You have to have the Holy Spirit enlightening the Word of God to you on words that you've already read. Yeah? The Ethiopian eunuch, could he read?
Yeah.
He could read, but he doesn't know what he's reading. It doesn't make any sense to him. Yeah. And most of us are in that situation. You know that most of us we can all read English. Every one of us can read the Bible, but we don't know what they talk about, what those words are meaning. And that's what we need to switch from reading the Bible to actually studying it and trying to understand what those words mean. And hopefully we've done a little bit of that today. That you can start seeing those words, a song of degrees for Solomon, thinking, I read that, I don't know what it's talking about. And what do we do when we don't know what it's talking about? We just move on and go to a more comfortable piece of scripture, like the Gospels. Because we know that the Bible is only 4 books big, not 66 books. That's how we behave, don't we? The scripture constantly open to God's people. There always has been and always will be a truth specially applicable to each generation. There always has been and always will be a truth specially applicable to each generation. So every single generation has got a truth for them. And we've already defined that a truth is something that tests them, that wasn't a test before. Why is she writing this in 1886? Because she's already warning you. The warning's already coming that something's about to happen. And they've already been playing around for the last 2 years, so they didn't take that warning, so there's another warning that comes. The message given to Noah, my brother mentioned Noah, was present truth for that time. And if the people had accepted that message, she says this nicely, they would have been saved from drinking the waters of the flood.
Wow.
Now suppose a certain people should say, who are the certain people?
The ministers, the elders,
Correct?
the conference people at a time.
The people living there and then. So this is the parable now, and she's saying, I'm going to be talking about you, but she says, now suppose a certain people, I don't want to be too confrontational, I call it certain people, but it's you she's talking about, say the following, we have all the truth that our fathers had, we don't want any more. Past truth. We know that our fathers had a health message, and we have all the truth that our fathers had, and we don't want any more. So we've got all of our reform message, and that's what we're going to deliver. That's what we're bringing. And someone says, by the way, do you know there's some more truths that have come up? They say, we don't want any of that stuff.
Does the BRI know about it?
We have all the truth that our fathers had, and that's what we want. Now suppose that certain people should say, we have all the truth that our fathers had, we don't want any more. And the God of heaven should send them a message as he did to Nineveh. What would be the result? The same as would have resulted to the Ninevites if they had not repented. Sentence was pronounced upon them, but their repentance saved them. How thankful we should be that we have a God who will repent of the threatened evil when the erring return to him with true contrition of soul. So, what she's saying in this passage, in 1886, you've got this 4-year period where she's already warned them in 84, now she warns them again in 86, and she says there's a present truth message that's going to come up, so I'm warning you beforehand, and what you must not do is say, we don't need any new messages because we're all comfortable with our old messages, the ones that our fathers had. And then she's going to compare this to Nineveh. She says the God of heaven sent them a message as he did to Nineveh. What would be the result? The same as would have resulted to the Ninevites if they had not repented. And what would have been that result if they hadn't repented? They would have been destroyed. It says sentence was pronounced upon them. When is the sentence pronounced? In Ninevites, when is the sentence pronounced?
Yeah, after they heard the message, yeah.
What is the pronouncement?
In 40 days.
In 40 days,
Nineveh shall be destroyed.
you're going to die.
Yeah.
So here's the pronouncement, P. 40 days, and then judgment. So the pronouncement is always at the beginning, not at the end. Because you need to warn people at the beginning. And that is talking about the watchman that waketh, that gives them the warning, can only happen if they're following the blueprint or the Lord is in this construction that's going on. So what I want us to pick up is in this story here, you have to have a warning before it happens. Before the death sentence, you have to be warned about it. And it's 40 isn't just any random 40.
And like I said, like this, basically the son-in-law can't have impact until it becomes basically the son-in-law warning that it needs to have.
it can't have any impact until it becomes present truth, which means when it's going to actually happen. It's not some kind of future thing. The Sunday law is upon us. And we're now in the time period where we're saying with confidence that the President of the United States, who, by the way, we've been talking about and predicting for the last 12 months.
Yeah, January 2016.
Yeah, that's when a video was made, but Bradley knew about this before then. This is the last president that's going to be before the Sunday law.
Yeah.
I don't know how long it's going to be. Who knows what could he do, what he couldn't do. But it's an imminent thing. And we want to really understand that the pronouncement or the warning has already been given. And this pronouncement was given 15 years ago.
Oh, yes.
15 years ago, this pronouncement was given. The warning already came. But before the warning came, there was already many indications about what was going on and what wasn't going on. Do I just carry on or shall I shut down?
They're not here yet.
Okay. So, Review and Herald, June 29, 1886. That's what I just read. Yeah. I just want to show us one thing. Right? Oh, yes. So, we took time on the Sabbath school. I thought I'd better do some of that. Because, it's all good to get excited, but I think it's much more important to know how to have some clues about going and investigating Bible studies for yourself. 1989. 9/11. (1979). 1979. I was going to ask that question. What happened? Okay, so how many years between 79 and 89? 10. This is when it starts getting the overwhelming sense of symbols and numbers and things which aren't provable in a short while. So, in 1979, there was a struggle, a war if you like, between two powers. The Soviet Union and people in Afghanistan. In Afghanistan, there was a puppet government. Do you know what a puppet government is?
Yeah, one that's put in place by the government to run.
Right?
Ones that's put in place by the government to kind of control things, but are not really elected by the
So we have to pack?
Yeah, although, just getting interesting.
We had a park.
Just go to the car park.
In the car.
Come to my home. I don't have one.